my pleasure to be talking to Lata Setty, who is the founding investor at How Women Invest Fund. So, Lata, it is so great to have you on the program today. I would love if you could give a quick introduction to our audience and we'll get started.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stan and Ansley. Lata Setty, and I am zooming in today from Nice in the south of France. And part of the reason for being here is my interest in supporting health tech ventures and especially diverse founders. As a quick background, Ansley, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Excellent. I started life as a bench scientist, subsequently utilized that and my graduate degree in reproductive endocrinology to go to law school and become specifically a trial attorney in patent litigation. I practiced in New York for about 10 years at the oldest patent law firm on the planet, which patented flight for the Wright brothers and electricity for Benjamin Franklin, etc. And after doing that for about a decade with absolutely no control over my calendar or my schedule, and in the meantime, I had gotten married and had a young toddler son that I wanted to periodically see. I left to start my first company, which back then, before the term digital transformation had even been utilized. And so ended up with two different startups. Both got funded in Silicon Valley. And they were fairly novel in their approach, not only to patents and patent law, but generally in bringing businesses and large departments of Fortune 500 companies, including legal departments, up in technology and utilizing and changing the archaic billable hour. Fast forward, my first company was funded by Sequoia Capital, Goldman Sachs, all the traditional top tier VCs in Silicon Valley. We got acquired 4 years later by Thomson Reuters and subsequently by Ernst & Young. And the second company we started in 2009 got acquired in 2019. Again, Sequoia and Goldman funded that. And the reason I'm providing that background, it's really to give some context on the way that how I was treated versus some of my male co-founders were treated, which was the genesis for what I'm doing now in How Women Invest Funds. But let me stop there, Ansley, and let you ask any questions.
Well, first I want to say what a wealth of experience that you have. I mean, I could honestly listen to you continue to talk about just what your background and your experience has been like. And honestly, my first question was going to ask you, what motivated you to get involved in How Women Invest Fund? And then also, how did you identify that need to really disrupt the traditional venture capital landscape?
Well, excellent questions. I can tell you're listening very closely. Well, two things happened with both my startups. I was a co-founder and had similar, if not even higher, educational credentials, etc., and bought a lot of expertise, domain expertise, funding clients, etc., like most co-founders do. But I think the way I was treated by the, traditional US male venture capital world. And as many of our listeners may know already, 97% of venture capitalists in America are white male brilliant men who generally went to like Harvard or Stanford or MIT, Kellogg, etc., which is fantastic. Unfortunately, what that does is you end up investing in people that look like you, that act like you, that you go to temple or church with or play golf with. And what that has led to happen in the venture capital world is that less than 1.9% of venture capital dollars in America, we're not talking India or Iran or Africa, we're talking America, goes to female founded startups. And then if you dig a little deeper, 0.5% goes to women of color founders in the US, zero point 0.5, a
Wow.
rounding error, right? And so when my second company got acquired by a large global hedge fund, I was finally positioned to be able to do something
Mhm.
of this, cataclysmic differences in the chasm in funding. And that mattered a lot to me at that point in time because of what I'd experienced about 20 years in the entrepreneurial venture world. So I came together with two other women in San Francisco to specifically launch the How Women Invest Fund. And not only do we focus on investing in female founded startups, I believe we are the largest female fund that invests
Wow.
solely in female founders in the US. And
Amazing.
and I came on board as the first investor because I wanted to make a difference and accelerate and support the journey of diverse entrepreneurs. And as you know, Ansley, there's a lot of, fantastic accelerators, incubators, and other communities, including HITLAB, that support founders. But if you don't have capital to
Right.
invest, you can't build and scale a company. So we launched our first How Women Invest Fund in 2020, right before COVID. Now in 2025, we are on our third fund and we are aiming to raise 100 million for that fund. And we launched that fund, ringing the bell at NASDAQ last year. And the distinction I wanted to make sure I clearly shared with you is that we have raised this fund without any institutional capital by bringing in limited partners, primarily high net worth women
Mhm.
who are, qualified to be accredited investors, where the threshold for that is pretty marginal in the U.S. But women who have historically been successful at investing in the stock market, in real estate, 401k, because either they think you need to have $500 million to invest in venture, or they've never had access to a venture fund. So
Mhm.
part of our goal is not only to invest in female founders, and we've already had two acquisitions, even though our funds are, less than 5 years old, but it's also to mobilize 10,000 women to invest in our venture fund that have never invested in or had access to invest in, startups directly. So does that help explain how we started it?
Yes, and I just want to say that I love everything that you're talking about here. I love first off when I feel like people see that there's a problem and then they want to have a solution and then they go out and they solve that problem with the solution. And so you're doing exactly that, but kind of on the opposite end. Typically, you would see that from like a startup, kind of, starting a company that addresses an issue, but you're instead starting an investment firm to be able to help startups kind of get to point A to point B. And then on top of that, you're recruiting women to be a women-led, women-founded investment fund. So, I mean, honestly, I'm telling you, I could sit here and listen to your experience and everything that you've done for what honestly feels like an hour. I could listen to it. And
Thank
talking
you.
about also, when you're talking like getting first time investors, right? Because maybe that's a myth that you have to have a certain amount of money in the bank to really to be able to be an investor. So how do you help ensure those first time investors that they, number one, feel empowered and then confident in their decision making when it comes to investing, and specifically investing in female founded or led companies?
Well, I love it, and I hope sometime soon you'll be an investor in our fund three. There's several parts to that question, so
Yeah.
I will unwrap it really quickly. Firstly, as far as bringing in first-time investors, limited
Mhm.
partners, as we call them, ours is a venture fund. So what that means is, unlike an angel fund where you invest directly in the startup as an investor, in a venture fund, you generally have an investment council of two or three very experienced venture partners. In
Mhm.
our case, we have three women who come from excellent backgrounds in venture investing. And along with our due diligence team, which of course includes me, we make a decision on which companies to invest. So our limited partners are investing in our fund while our decision making in where and which companies and which founders we invest is
Mhm.
made internally within that investment council. But part of the reason I think it's important to bring in new investors And as you said, to help them understand how to invest. So our fund is called How Women Invest Funds, but we have a partner sister organization, which is a nonprofit called How Women Lead, where
Mhm.
we offer courses in how to be an angel investor, how to be a venture investor, like, Venture Investor 101. It's like a
Mhm.
4-week course. So people who are working or full time engaged otherwise can learn, because I think it's very important that it becomes part of the conversation, right? So now between our funds 1, 2, and 3, we have over 200 limited partners. So, when those folks go out to lunch or go play tennis or go to the gym or
Mhm.
go for a walk with their girlfriends, we want them to talk about, hey, what company are you looking at? What are you investing in? We want it to become part of the conversation. So we have that training. Now, once you decide to become an investor, a limited partner in our for profit venture fund, once a month, because now when you're a limited partner, you signed off on the NDA and confidentiality and so forth. Once a month, we have 4 of our portfolio companies come online on Zoom and pitch our limited partners so they become involved in the process and they understand, what do you look for in a startup? What do you look for in a founder? What kind of technology is it? And that also helps the learning process, as well as you can imagine they get excited about the companies. And then there's a Q&A and feedback session. So once the founder comes and pitches our broader limited partner pool, then the founder jumps off and the new investors can ask questions to us on what did it work. And we even have a survey as to should we move forward in it, further due diligence, etc. And the
Mhm.
other part is, for example, in health tech, we have a lot of subject matter experts, doctors, entrepreneurs, and others in the health tech space who can serve as subject matter experts on our different startups when we're doing the due diligence. I want to dig deeper into that because I know we don't have much time, but those are some of the ways that our founders are connecting with our limited partners, and our limited partners are growing in their confidence to invest. And I just want to share one data point on
Yeah.
that. So our funds, all 3 combined, have been around for about 5 years total. And last year we did a sort of a research project, a survey of all of our limited partners, and 30% of them had moved on and invested in other funds and become angel founders, meaning that ripple effect, once you invest in a fund and you are believing and supporting female founders, you get excited and energized and confident to do it in other ways as well.
Mhm. Amazing. I mean, and honestly, you can dive deeper if you want to. I know that we technically have some time constraints here, but I mean, this is so interesting, and I'm sure this is really on point for our audience as well, just in terms of understanding opportunities when it comes to number one, finding female-led, investments, and then also the classes that you were talking about, like the 4 weeks, and the nonprofit, and just everything that you're doing. I feel like please do dive a little deeper. Don't feel any
Sure.
too.
Well, one thing I think might be interesting to your
Yeah.
audience is that, investing in female founded startups, whether in the US or globally, it's obviously the right thing to do because talent is everywhere, right? Opportunity is not. But it's also not just a morally correct or, the noble
Mhm.
thing to do. Female founded startups versus male founded startups. If you invest $1 in a male founded startup in the US, you get 37 cents back return of investment,
Mhm.
ROI. If you invest the same dollar in a female founded startup, you get 68% ROI, more than 2x. So, as far as whether you're at a family wealth office or you're at a hedge fund or you're in your own venture fund, the point is almost 2 times in profitability for your investors. So it also almost becomes a fiduciary obligation if you want to get the greatest returns for your investor, right? And the other part to note is right now, I know most of the audience knows this, but over 50% of college students and graduate students, medical school, law school, MBAs are female. And recently, I saw a statistic in the Wall Street Journal, like last week, that over 45% of homes in the US, the head of the household, meaning the primary revenue generator, is a woman.
Mhm.
And when you look at all this combined, women now have the power, the influence, and people like me who are, becoming empty nesters and middle agers, we have had 20, 25 years or more in the corporate arena. So we can bring all those together generationally in a way our mothers and grandmothers didn't have an opportunity to do, to exert our influence and, invest with our, we call it voting with your wallet.
Mhm.
Invest in companies that you want to see in the world. You want to be there for your family, etc.
Amazing. Absolutely. I mean, our audience is definitely sending up a bunch of emojis. I don't know if you could see, but the
Oh,
clapping emojis and the heart emoji. So they are definitely loving everything. And as me as well as what you're talking about, because I feel like this is so important to learn more. I mean, I had no idea that the rate of return was so much higher when it two times the rate, like you said, just investing in a woman founded company. So but as we do our conscious of time, I have one more question for you to
of
wrap us
course.
up. So, in your experience, what are the most common challenges that female entrepreneurs specifically do face when trying to access funding? And then, how does your fund actively address and overcome those barriers?
That's a very deep rooted systemic question. A lot of times, venture firms, as I mentioned earlier, mostly driven by male venture capitalists, they will ask questions for female founders
Mhm.
that are more risk oriented, risk management, preventive questions. While with male founders, they look at it as what's called promotion questions, like where will you scale your company? What countries will you go into? How are you going to grow it? So they are questioned on their potential,
Mhm.
while women are questioned on, can you manage this money? Will you be able to bring back the return I'm seeking, so forth. So my advice in one of the clearest ways to address some of the female founder challenges in fundraising is when you're asked that preventive or risk prevention question, find a way to turn it around in real time and convert it to a promotion question. So let's say you're asked about, hey, you have family and you have all these obligations. Do you think you have the time to be able to build and scale this company if we decide to fund you? So
Mhm.
maybe the way to respond is, women are very good at managing budgets, at multitasking. And I've gotten here where I am today irrespective of some of the obstacles and hurdles I had to face as a female entrepreneur, both time, finances, culture, etc. And here's how I'm planning to scale. And these are my 2 or 3 milestones I'm reaching for. And I've already reached, X, Y, and Z, and I'm aiming for one, two, and three. And your funding can help me reach one, two, and three. So be on your toes and convert and be aware that these questions can be massaged into ways to highlight the strengths of you as a founder and the areas that your company is really building traction in the marketplace.
Amazing. Again, emojis are just lighting up. I can see it on my, my screen. And actually, I just wanted to let everybody know that if you're interested in hearing even more about this and a little more in depth in Paris next week, Lata is actually going to be there in person as well. So I'm going to put this up onto the screen here again. It is free to attend, everybody. It is at the Hotel Dieu, a beautiful venue in Paris. And again, if you want to hear more for Lata on this, she'll be there in person. And thank you so much for joining us virtually today. And we look forward to seeing you in person next week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.